Hello, I'm Dr. Mary Harrell, a clinical psychologist, a Jungian-oriented psychotherapist, and I come to you on Wednesdays to talk about different aspects of the imaginal realm and ideas especially about imaginal figures. What are they? How are they real? How can they help us in our lives? So thank you for being here. And today, as I do most Wednesdays, I'm going to answer a question that has been asked to me by one of my readers. So the question is this: can imaginal figures help us understand what's going on in the culture? So there's a particular cultural phenomenon that I have especially paid attention to, because before I became a psychologist, I was a classroom teacher, and after that I was a college professor. I was an associate professor at State University of New York in Oswego, and I'm currently an emeritus professor there. I experienced the phenomenon of school shootings as a cultural dream. So dreams are non-rational, non-local, and always live in the present. So imagine if you had a dream and floating around the dream are these characters, these figures that are not three-dimensional, but they're just flat images of things, objects. And so I was seeing in my cultural imagination Harris and Klebold. I was seeing Luger pistols. I was seeing semi-automatic weapons. I couldn't help wonder if this dream, this cultural dream that's in fact being played out in a very concrete way in the culture, if it wasn't speaking to a larger idea that is in the cultural unconscious. And what I came to understand is that the series of school shootings, with all the images that come out of each shooting and the collection of shootings, is what I would call national violence. So it's a violence that's very deeply embedded in the cultural psyche, and it's by and large unconscious. So when there's a school shooting and we read about it and hear about it on national news, questions are asked like, is the problem a problem of guns? Is the problem a problem of mentally ill boys? Because it's almost always boys that are doing these shootings. And so that's what the conscious understands. But the unconscious questions go much deeper than that. So what I came up with is that guns are metal objects, and very often in dreams when there's a metal object, the dreamer understands that psyche is bringing something to awareness that the individual soul or the cultural soul cannot digest. And so certainly there is never a school shooting without the presence of this non-digestible element, these weapons in the hands of young boys. But I think the bigger question and the bigger image that comes for me as I analyze this cultural dream is the question of national violence. What causes it? What's behind it? Is the cultural psyche pointing to something the collective might want to consider in order to stop this national dream being acted out as fate, because we don't look at it, we don't study it, we don't acknowledge it. So one of the things I came up with is that in the West, and this phenomenon of school shootings occurs in the United States more prevalently than anywhere else in the world. And it is in this culture of ours that has Judeo-Christian roots that we have to recognize that in a Judeo-Christian culture, there is a tendency to split good and evil, and to put evil out there. We call it the devil. And as long as evil is out there, meaning it's split off from us as a culture or from us as individuals, then what you have is ideas and real lively dynamics that we can no longer contain and no longer transform. So what that means in terms of school shooting is that we have young boys on the cusp of manhood, which is archetypally a very vulnerable place for them to be. And we've, as a culture, encouraged them to split off aspects of self like greed and rage and position them out there in the other. These people that I can kill now because I don't like, because I say they are mean, I say they are not worth living. When really the problem is my own rage and my own violent tendencies and my own unmet needs. So that's something that came up when I looked at this situation from a cultural perspective. Also, this recurring problem requires us to acknowledge that in our culture today, there are no longer powerful initiation rituals by which our young men can be brought into manhood. And I do not mean the very poor, skewed, unhealthy rituals and initiation rites that, for instance, a gang leader or other gang members or fraternity members would have put upon people trying to get into the club or the group. I don't mean that. I mean real initiation rites in which you have the elders of a society, and it has to be, in the case of men, young men, it has to be male elders, gathering around young men and being with them as they suffer, helping them to be with their suffering, helping them to contain their suffering, and supporting them so that when this time of suffering is over, the young men will take out of that period of time the deep internalized understanding that because I have endured, because I have suffered, I can survive anything, and I don't have to blow up, and I don't have to go crazy, and I don't have to shoot people that I decide are my enemies. So, in ancient times, we had initiation rituals, and one example of a tribe that still adheres to ancient rites would be a tribe in Papua New Guinea, that even now will take the young men who are ready to go. It's a choice that the young men make. And they go in a hut, and they are in the hut for some days with elder men. They are scarred, which is a symbolic harming. And the scars, every day the young men are taken by the elders down to the waters, and their scars are washed, and over time they become swollen, and they look like alligator scars. They become symbolic of a suffering that they have endured in this time in the hut with their elders. I am not suggesting at all that our young boys should undergo such ritual scarring. There's suffering enough in the culture that they endure. What I am suggesting is that our young men are held by cultural institutions and or cultural males as they are mentored and go through these times of suffering. The Papua New Guinea boys, when they are finished with the initiation rites, go and join the tribe and become productive members of the tribe. In our culture, a group that I would say performs a similar rite of passage by which the elders of the tribe hold people who are suffering would be Alcoholics Anonymous. So when people go into that group, they go as suffering individuals, bearing many scars. And the elders of the tribe, that they call old timers, stay with them and mentor them. And while they don't do a physical scarring, they certainly encourage them to come to terms with the harmful behavior that they are perpetrating against themselves and against others. And they stay with them in mentoring and guidance and wisdom. Eventually, those individuals are able to go into society and be productive citizens if in fact they stay throughout the initiation time. So I think that I would like to end there, and I hope this has been useful. I am Dr. Mary Harrell. I am the author of a book, Imaginal Figures in Everyday Life, Stories from the World Between Matter and Mind. Thank you so much for being with me today. With that, I say goodbye.